Now, yesterday, as many of you know, maybe you don't know, it was primary day across New York State, and we got something of a surprise in the headliner race. Attorney Wendy Long, who, trust me, if you didn't hear of her, don't feel bad, but she's now the nominee for the GOP. She already had the Conservative Party nomination. She got the GOP as well. She beat Congressman Bob Turner, I'm sorry, Jessica, and NASA Controller George Maragos. Long is now going to look to upset Senator Kirsten Gillibrand come the fall. And Andrew, any other upsets here? I know there's a few people who said, thank God, possible candidates didn't get the nomination.
We'll get to those sighs of relief, but no major upsets, Rich. We'll start in Queens, where Assemblywoman Grace Meng rode the backing of the local party leadership to victory over 2 city council members. She's now the odds-on favorite to succeed the retiring Gary Ackerman in Congress and to become the first Asian American ever to represent the Empire State in Washington. In Brooklyn, Assemblyman Hakeem Jeffries provided some of that relief to worried Democratic Party leaders. He knocked off Councilman Charles Barron. He of the often embarrassing and occasionally over-the-line sound bites. Jeffries enters the general election race the heavy favorite to succeed the retiring Ed Towns. In Harlem, Charlie Rangel's legacy now has a new chapter. He survived his closest challenge in years, winning by just 5 points, or 3 points as the net results come in. This is the first time Rangel has faced voters since being censured by Congress in 2010. He's now expected to cruise to re-election in November. The worry is that low turnout in Westchester and Rockland counties could produce a congressional nominee who had been disowned by his own party. Fizzled out yesterday. Rye-Town Supervisor Joe Carvin winning his primary over Jim Russell. Still, Russell in his past writings supporting racial and religious separation pulled in 35% of the vote in that race. Carvin a heavy underdog, though, to unseat incumbent Democrat Nita Lowey in the heavily Democratic district. And finally, in the Hudson Valley's 18th district, former advisor to the Clinton White House Sean Patrick Maloney. He survived a 5-way primary fight. Up next for Maloney, freshman Republican Congresswoman Nan Hayworth, what figures to be one of the state's more interesting and potentially close congressional races this fall, Rich.
All right. Well, it was a mixed bag last night, right? You had a couple of clients and candidates, one that gave an acceptance speech and one who said, hey, I tried.
Yep, you know, we were 1-1 and we always like to win them all, but unfortunately the Senate race did not turn out the way we planned.
What happened there? Because I thought it was Turner's. I mean,
a lot of people did, and he certainly did. He had national and international name recognition from his upset congressional win, and the turnout across the state was just so dismal. I mean, worse than the presidential primary, which no one came out in because Romney was ostensibly the nominee at that point. So I think, you know, I gotta blame the media somewhat on that because
it's our fault. Why now?
No, because it was really difficult to get attention. You would travel across the state and no one knew that there was a Senate primary. So it's really unfortunate. I think at the end of the day, the voters lose because you have such a small percentage of the voters selecting their nominee. But, you know, Wendy Long did a great job. She traveled upstate. She ran a great campaign, and, you know, she won handily. Yeah, and we won Carvin, which, you know, I think, you know, that he will be a credible challenger to Nita Lowey. The district is very different now, Rockland County.
By 1,000 votes, my gosh. I mean, Russell, don't even get me started. I think people that watch the show know my history with that guy, but he got 30-something%.
I know, and that's the concern.
He's preaching eugenics. I mean, my God.
But you have the very far right that comes out, or the far left that come out to vote in primaries. So
like
it was.
Carvin is some member of the ACLU here for crying out loud. He's a legit conservative.
But, you know, no one could take anything for granted. So that was, you know,
were you did you do a double take that this guy got?
Well, you shouldn't worry about losing to Wendy Long because, no offense, she's a sacrificial lamb up against Gillibrand. It's not even tough. Democratic state. What's the rationale to replace her?
Right. All right, Dom, let me ask you about Rangel. That was close, okay? And what was the message at the end of the day that came out of it? That, I mean, I won. But he's not forgiven, is he?
No, just the opposite. The message at the end of the day is that the Harlem community stands by Charlie Rangel. Now, the demographics. Well, the demographics, I mean, it was almost like 3 things that were against him. The redistricting, the censure, I mean, and we can go on and on.
But this got to be it for Rangel one way or the other, you think, right? This is his last term?
But the big difference is he gets to go out on his terms, not on someone else's.
And the poor people that worry about 22 times getting elected means career politicians, means no fresh blood, no new ideas, huge power base. Gosh, the wealthy have got to be loving this.
Power of incumbency is very hard to be.
It's embarrassing in a country like ours that talks about media coverage and elections every other day, that anyone owns a seat in the most powerful borough, in the most powerful city in the country. Owns it.
I tell you one incumbent,
That's
Andrew,
owning
that
it.
might have a little challenge come the fall is going to be Nan Hayworth, I think. Sean Patrick Maloney, who don't know, he ran for Attorney General, had a gig with the Clinton administration. This guy, he comes off real well on TV. I didn't think he was going to win the primary. He did. He's going to raise money here, and I think Hayworth, who's a freshman herself here, she's going to have an interesting fight in an always unpredictable district.
And he can fight well with her on any number of issues, including the economy, on healthcare, on some of the social issues, including gay rights. So there's going to be a lot of fronts that he's going to have against Nan Hayworth. It should be very interesting to see how that plays out.
He's very smooth.
Yeah.
Very.